Swamiji draws an interesting sort of logical sequence and an equivalency between the happiness and a strong soul. So, here we don't mean happiness in the polarity of happiness and sorrow. I think what he's talking about is joy, and that's where he leads to, is to inner joy. So when we share and we do something and it builds our sense of inner joy, we get strong and we get strongly centered in soul consciousness. This is what is required to inspire us to practice. And then when we practice... Hi, I'm David Wegman. I'm the founder of Kailash Ashram. We are a traditional meditation and yoga retreat center in the Aussie outback. I'm a sniper turned meditator and yogin, and on this channel we love to share uplifting soulful messages to help you reconnect to what's important, your soul. Tonight's sharing is based on our reading of Samarpan of the Himalayas, an autobiography of my guru, Swami Shivkrupanand. This is a real spiritual classic, very accessible. We've got links in the description if you want to follow along with us. Otherwise, just feel free to enjoy the spiritual messages as shared by me based on Swamiji's teachings. Yeah. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Para Brahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. May our souls always be present with us. This evening we're continuing with the next installment of Swamiji's autobiography, Samarpan of the Himalayas. I did pick up a little bit from his, from the page I think I left on. I couldn't tell where the closing of the old chapter was and the opening of the new one was. So anyway, I mean, I'm just going to shoot the little points. I think it'll be a quick one tonight. Time has no meaning. Caught me by surprise. Time has no meaning. So when we're engaged, technically speaking, the soul is something that exists outside of time, space, and causation. So that's a great way of understanding if the thing that you are talking about is the soul. Now, the soul is not an object in and of itself. It's not another thing inside of reality. In Vedanta and yoga, we understand the soul as consciousness, the thing from which all creation stems. So time is the passage or the interval between 2 points in a chronology flowing from, present, we have the past, that which has happened before us, that which is coming in the future, yet to happen is the future. So if the object that we're referring to is not able to be located in time, that's a good indication that it's the soul. Space is the object bound by the 5 elements, the 5 gross physical elements, and does it reside inside the universe? If it does, it isn't the soul. So the earth is a big ball of dirt floating around a hydrogen reactor called the sun. So it's located as a physical thing in a space. Awareness. Now, does awareness exist similarly in a similar manner? No. So awareness, consciousness is outside of that. Causation. Causation is the law of cause and effect. The law of gravity, the pen falls down in quite a predictable manner. The forces that the scientists, the physicists, the chemists study and work with in materials or light and energy abide by laws that can map and give us great degrees of prediction over whatever those things are. So the other law that those who've done a bit of work with 4 yogas will understand, the law of karma, of good, bad, and none escape the law, as Vivekananda put it. So the law of karma is again another law of cause and effect. You do something, it has an effect out there. stand on the ground and it makes a sound. Well, there's a cause, and then there is an effect, the sound. So the soul, is the soul inside of causation? No. Awareness, pure consciousness, the soul is outside of causation itself. Given that it doesn't have, or it isn't governed by the law of causation, the question of where does the soul come from cannot really truly be asked, because then we are talking about something that is bound by the laws of causation. So a bit like the physicists and with the Big Bang theory, where everything in this observable universe was condensed to something smaller than the size of the pin of a head. As I've said before, quoting Terence McKenna, this kind of scientific viewpoint operates on the principle: give us one miracle and then we'll explain everything else. Everything condensed into something the size of the head of a pin, and then for no reason it just sprung forth and created this crazy universe. That's the Big Bang kind of theory. So, what happened when everything was condensed the size of the pin of a head? They don't know. The laws of physics break down. They literally don't work at the singularity. And so I think it's quite fitting that, whatever the pre-Big Bang state, which is fundamentally a mystery, and we are speculating, that pre-Big Bang state is, from the yogic vantage point, we would say it's something that is outside of space, time, and causation, and thus it is the soul. So it might be a really interesting place where spirituality and science converge, is in our origin or lack thereof. An interesting thing that came to me when I was pondering upon time having no meaning. That's an indication that one has gone. The place where we go when we're dealing with bodily consciousness, the time does have some meaning, because I've only got 90 to 100 years inside of this thing, to do the work that I need to do on Earth. So time does have a meaning. What part of me does time not have a meaning for? That would be the soul. And it's quite interesting for those that have done a hobby or a craft or an art or something that you've been deeply engaged with, maybe even the yoga, doing some movement with the yoga, we can develop a sense of flow state. And that flow state is often when the appearance of time begins to dissolve. We get lost completely in the thing that we are doing, and coincidentally we find ourselves in it. So jumping along to the next little tidbit, happiness and sadness as states of the mind. And what Swamiji says is that their existence depends upon our belief. So the realness of happiness, the realness of sadness is contingent upon the belief, the inner feeling of conviction that we bring to it. So, what's the logical thing to infer from that? If I don't believe in sadness, then maybe it isn't so real. Similarly, what if I don't believe in that happiness? Is there a downside to that? Well, we might feel maybe anhedonia or numbness or evenness. But I would challenge that, at the extreme, happiness and sadness work with a polarity where we can oftentimes avoid the sadness and crave the happiness. Yoga, we kind of settle for equanimity, which is not anhedonia. Anhedonia is non-feeling. Equanimity is a sense of balance. Certainly something that I'm learning to do as much as I can is not to put my conviction into any emotion that is arising, because it is fundamentally a modification of the mind. And as Patanjali said, yoga's chitta vriddhi nirodha, the cessation of the modifications of the mind. So the less emphasis we place into those things, probably the more equanimous we're going to be. Certainly the easier it is to surrender any of the things that come up. Swamiji talks about the inner joy of the soul that comes really only from one thing. And was a timely night for me to pick this one because it is through sharing, which is what I'm doing here. And, I've had a trip into Melbourne, Anzac Day. There's been a whole lot going on in the veteran space, and it's kind of stirred up the hornet's nest. And probably the last thing that I wanted to do this afternoon was jump on a Zoom call kind of late in the evening and have a chat about this stuff. And I'm like, oh God, how do I get myself into the zone? And then whack, I open, and 2 pages in, Swamiji's badgering me with joy comes through sharing, slap. And I'm like, okay, yep, there we go. That's the benefit of sharing this stuff is I get to hear all of these eternal truths. But the push for all of you is to consider that the more you give, the more you get, the more you share things of value that have brought you something good, the more you share that with people, the nicer you feel inside. Fundamentally, it's a message of karma yoga, and karma yoga solves the problem of an impure mind. So how do we create pure mind? Selfless service. We offer ourselves in service of something other than our own ego. Why is that? Because most of the suffering is associated with our own ego, ahamkara, the I maker, attaching itself to all of our worldly phenomena. So the second you get into the mode taking care of somebody else, it means that you're less focused upon your own self. The big caveat for that is that you make sure you take care of this body and also your mind and not overgive to others. When he starts talking about donation, helping bring about the experience of joy, we can conceive of the time and the energy that we give into supporting people as a donation. He's not just talking about, giving money to a cause. Certainly that is one way to get involved in spreading joy, but it isn't, for me personally, I've got much more out of sharing at the ashram than say donating to the Royal Flying Doctors $20 a month or whatever, like it just the offering, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. The offering of oneself as a conduit for service is much of the benefit. Swamiji draws an interesting sort of logical sequence and an equivalency between the happiness and a strong soul. So, here we don't mean happiness in the polarity of happiness and sorrow. I think what he's talking about is joy, and that's where he leads to, is to inner joy. So when we share and we do something and it builds our sense of inner joy, we get strong and we get strongly centered in soul consciousness. This is what is required to inspire us to practice. And then when we practice, we make progress. What is progress? I'm still trying to work that out. Progress for me is maybe a little bit better than yesterday. What better is, what worse is, only we as individuals know. The spiritual progress that meditation and yoga can bring us is defined by us in the quiet of our own meditation or with the deeper contemplation of where we're at. And only we know if we're moving in the right direction or moving in the wrong direction. Certainly, progress for me need not look like entering into a meditative trance, or it need not look like having pretty psychedelic visions in a meditation. For me, really, where the rubber meets the road with this stuff is the 23 and a half hours of the day I'm not meditating. That's where I care whether or not I'm more present, more distracted, whether or not I'm centered with my soul, whether I'm living an external life in alignment with my deepest soul wish. That's what progress looks like. So, don't be looking at saintliness necessarily straight away as the progress. Unless you make that, you've made no progress on your path. Certainly not. Many times people come out here to the ashram and they'll have a nice experience on retreat and they'll make decisions to maybe change up jobs, leave relationships, and just start taking the steps towards they know what is right for them. I would say that is progress, even if the meditations are lousy, which they can be depending on what we've been putting into the physical and the subtle body. So Swamiji says that one can't understand Paramatma without understanding the soul. So Paramatma, Para is supreme and Atman is soul or self. And so Atman or Jivatman is the indwelling or individuated self. So for those that have been on the soul retreat, when we talked about the little log and the big log, we've got individual soul, little log, big log, Paramatma. So if you want to understand the Supreme, one must grapple and deal with, the indwelling soul. And how do we do that? That's through the paths of self-cultivation and introspection. He speaks at length about the driver and vehicle analogy, which is quite a nice one, that, the body is the vehicle and maybe, I know that there's various ways of framing it. The soul could come in as the driver, perhaps the mind is the driver and the soul is the passenger, just watching it all go on. But the important thing, or the thing that I really picked up from the analogy in this case, is that both are needed. Swamiji isn't shitting on the body and the mind. He's saying that they're needed. They're needed for the soul to have its experience. So, in the haste to spiritualize every dimension of our lives, sometimes people like myself, especially a bit obsessive, get gripped by a particular practice or, a new worldview, a spiritual or a religious worldview. We can start thinking of the body as just this complaining, annoying, sort of lesser than my spiritual self. Some religious traditions kind of shun or don't even really do much with the body at all. Well, what Swamiji is laying out here is like, no, it's very important, because without a good body, without a fit body, without a cultivated body, the soul is cruising around in a rusty old, rent-a-bomb, or one of those old sort of, rust buckets. So I thought it quite interesting to use this as a point to differentiate between, the main thrust of the different yogic paths. In Hatha Yoga, the cultivation of the body through and the use of the body, so we cultivate it through asana and karana, so sort of movement forms to limber up and open the body, all of those positionings. And then as you go further with Hatha Yoga, we use asana, so seats, mudra, and mantra to sort of seal and lock in the energy to enter into deeper meditational states. So, you look at what happens in many modern schools where yoga has become a bit of an exercise. On the path of Hatha Yoga, was that the exercise component was only utilized in order to prepare you for the asana, so that you could sit for extended periods in different poses. So unless the body has been cultivated, that deeper element of the practice is unattainable. And so unfortunately, many people then now see yoga as an exercise in and of itself, not knowing that it's designed to carry you towards, mudra and the bandhas, the different blocks, pranayama, all of the other dimensions of yoga. So when you look at what Vivekananda laid out with his 4 yogas approach to yoga, only one of those yogas deals with the cultivation of mind. So Raja, all deal with cultivation of mind, but Raja Yoga is really the path of meditation. And so if you unpack Raja Yoga and look at that, and you look at Patanjali's 8 limbs of yoga, physical positionings is 1/8 out of 25% of all of the possible sort of yogas, according to the kind of 4 yogas sort of viewpoint. So I mean, 1/10 of it'd be 2.5% if it was 1/10. So let's call it 3% of what Vivekananda taught would be suitable with what is, or would be compatible with what most yoga studios teach. So that's a missed opportunity to cultivate all of these other parts of ourself. But for many people, that first 3% of going and doing a little bit of huff and puff in a yoga studio, it's a great introduction to start branching out into the deeper soulful aspect of practice. Swamiji talks about the birds. So this one, it's quite a strange thing to reflect or to think about conversations, and then to have the transcript that he goes into with his guru about the birds wanting to go for a feed and getting into a little bit of a bickering match or whatever it is that they're chatting about. But what's interesting here is that it's not just the conversation of the birds and whether or not Swamiji's guru has a telepathy towards the birds. But if you notice the directions of how his guru is asking him to pay attention to the bird, to investigate it with curiosity, to keep his attention on their aura, to allow the intellect to get out of the way so that he can kind of perceive vibration. So the guru is trying to, remember, the guru is the figure point that represents the soul. The soul is saying, go beyond the intellect, go beyond the cognizing mind of thinking, we can't understand them, birds are just making sounds. It's like, delete those thoughts, pay attention and see what arises. And this is a really beautiful, maybe a template, not just to communicate with birds, but to communicate with humans and to listen to ourself. He goes on to say that, that language is that medium for communication. It's for bringing us together. And I thought, I've never even really looked at the word communication. So there's a uni, joining, commune. It's when we gather. So communication at its best, when we do pay that level of attention and go beyond the words and go into the vibration or the aura, enables us to hold space for each other. Remember, communication, tongue is the organ of action for the throat chakra, ears are the organ of perception. This is the space element. So we hold space and we create space and we close space between us through hearing beyond the words. And that means that we need to be trusting of something deeper inside of us. It's called the resonating principle. And it's something that, we sensitize fundamentally through the meditation. So you are rehearsing when you're sitting there and softening in your meditation, doing the same and softening with other people around them so that you can perceive more and so that their soul itself can feel safe and supported and then come out with whatever thing that it is that they need to share. Swamiji talks about the interrelationship between proximity and faith and the guru and the disciple. So I had to first read this, this is the sort of paragraph that can send the Indian section of the community running to be close to Swamiji's physical body because they think, wow, I'm going to get so much just by being in the guru's physical proximity. You could be sat quite opposite Swamiji's physical body if you wanted to be, but if your mind was full of cynicism or was elsewhere, you wouldn't actually be present with him. So what is it to be in proximity with the guru? It is to take ourselves to that in a state of surrender and openness. Who is the guru? Our soul is the guru. How do we take ourselves and create proximity with the soul? Well, 30 minutes of meditation a day is a good buy-in because we're giving ourselves time to not deal with the busyness of all of the crap that's going on and to be with awareness, to be with consciousness. This helps us transcend bodily consciousness. It helps us anchor ourselves in our spiritual tradition and our spiritual self, where we are habituating ourselves to the stillness that the mind and the body need in order for us to perceive or rest with the perception of the soul. In the devotional self, so now if we switch away from a Raja Yoga, the meditative yoga path, and we look at that as a devotional practice, Bhakti Yoga, it's what happens when we bring our physical self to the guru. Well, remember, Bhakti means separation. It actually means division in a sense. So you're placing the object of your devotion away from you so that you can see it. And then the qualities of the thing that you are before will begin to imbibe into you. And Swamiji certainly talks about that with dance and music. In India, there's a lot of soul that flows through it because a dance teacher isn't a teacher, they're a guru. There is an embodiment and there is a transmission that occurs from the guru to the disciple, and something transmits through osmosis. Meditation, when it's done like this, as a practice of assimilation, takes us beyond the mind and the body. Also, what has to happen for us to venerate something, to lift it up? What does it do? It diminishes our ego. So there you go, that key impediment to our suffering, the ego and its attachment to all of the positive and negative of life. We are deliberately diminishing it just by placing something higher than us. And obviously we are not sectarian here, as in that, if you love your Jesus or your Buddha or a different guru, you just keep putting them up where you need to put them. It is a bhakti method. Then you use the different methodologies of bhakti once you have your object to pay your respects and your love, offer your devotion. And that will crush the ego right down and let those qualities flow into you. I thought there was... he also does reiterate that experience at the end of the day is your teacher in life, and that the game of light and shadow and the game of problem and solution is the nature of existence. That's quite a profound one in there. A lot of the time we can first seek out spirituality, we seek out meditation when we're seeking to be free from the problems, when we want the light. We've had enough of the shadow, we want the light. We want the problems gone, we want the solutions. And then we start meditating and we realize, holy shit, this game of problems and solutions is eternal. It is. And the light and the shadow doesn't stop. What happens though by empowering ourselves with sadhana, with practice, is that we find something that straddles both. The equanimity of the soul rides through both the elation of finding the solution and the crushing realization that you've got another problem coming your way. And that level of balance enables us to be present and in the world without being crushed or pulled down in a too catastrophic way by the ups and downs of life. So if you did want your problems to go away, they will go away. Keep meditating, they'll go away, but you're going to get more problems. I hate to be the bringer of bad news, but it's like, you remember the video games, if you played them growing up, it's like you get past the level 1 boss and then you're up to level 2 boss and shit gets real, and then level 17 Tetris or whatever you're in, the pieces are flying down super fast, and you've got to rise to match that occasion. And so how long do we keep playing that game of having to tackle through all of the challenges that come with us, insofar as we have karma, and insofar as there is still a storehouse of things that we are drawing from? Interestingly, in the Buddhist tradition, they would suggest that until everybody is enlightened, you ain't getting to nirvana. So you're not getting to your heaven, you're not getting to dissolution until you have done your duty to lift everybody up out of the quagmire. So whether or not that's capital T true, it helps me contextualize my suffering and recognizing that we are in a collective endeavor called life. The greatest gift that we can do is get ourselves on two solid, stable bits of earth, and then from that place offer ourselves in support and service of others. Even if earlier today when I was in a funk, I'm like, oh my God, why do we even have an ashram? Maybe we should just close this thing because it'd be easier. Those doubts come into my mind, and thankfully, hopefully they're only in my mind and not Rajni's mind, Raya's mind, because she's the one that came over at 4 o'clock and said, well, are you doing the session tonight or are we cancelling it? And I'm like, oh, damn, my soul is like, there's no way I'm getting off this. If it was just me talking about my stuff, as we did in previous years, I probably would have gone, I need a week off. Thanks to the fact that Swamiji is here and we are giving you his text, I feel like the mirror is especially hard, and I have to look at his smiling face and go well, I guess we're doing it then, we're going to do it. And every time I open his book, I know that there'll be the message that I need to get in there, and it was there into the second paragraph that I was reading that, happiness or sadness depends on our belief in them. And I thought to myself, wow, I've been putting a lot of belief into the wrong horse. And he also said that inner joy is got through sharing. And so I have uplifted my own soul tonight by the obligation and the commitment that I made to Swamiji. So I say thanks. Cheers, Swamiji. This one's on you. They're all on him. It's his book. But Humbled to have shared. Hopefully there is something in there. Actually, final point that I will finish on. It's a good one, I think, worth finishing on. He goes into a very long diatribe about like the guru can't do jack. He's not able to do anything. He can't give. He can't help you. There's nothing that the guru can do. One must take from the guru through surrendering. And I was like, "Ooh, yeah, that hits. That hits." It's the baby's sucking action at the mother's breast that draws the milk forward. It is our openness and our inner need for knowledge, inspiration, guidance, a pep talk, to be surrounded with some positive ideas. It is our need that then elicits that from the guru. The guru will shower his grace universally on everybody. They're just a force of nature. If somebody goes to a guru with cynicism and is closed off, they will receive nothing, and they'll come away going, some guru, right? Like, can't do much, hey? If we go and we're in a genuine place where we are opening and we are, acknowledging that we wish to receive, then what comes through is as per God's own grace, said by me, a theist, by the divine, or whatever it is, however you want to frame that. But for me, Swamiji has been a conduit for some very, very divine messages. It was my soul that heard that they were divine, though. It could have been my mind that said, I don't know about this. But thanks to the meditation that he gave, I had a little bit of a glimmer, a little bit more of an opening for my own soul. So that's a nice preamble for us to get into a meditation. So I'll flick you around, face the altar, and join you for meditation. I'll say Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you very much. If this sharing has been useful for you, please consider hitting that like button and a subscribe if you want to hear more from us. Also, I would love for you to join me on a retreat at any stage. There's links in our description to get you started with meditation, as well as joining me on a retreat in the Grampians. Jayat Meshwa means victory to your soul as a divine. See ya.